Namaste and a very good evening to all of you. I welcome you to my channel, The Outlier. My name is Mithun. In today's video, I'll be talking about how to perform gender diversity analysis using SPSS. Even before I proceed to demonstrate how to perform gender diversity analysis in SPSS, may I request you to subscribe to my channel, also like and share my videos. Let me begin by loading the dataset into IBM SPSS. How do you load the dataset into SPSS? Load the dataset into SPSS. The first thing that we need to do is click on the File menu. Here, I will move to an option which is called as Recently Used Data. SPSS displays 10 recently used files. I'll be choosing the file right at the top. This is called as Employee Dataset. This dataset is part of the samples folder that comes in with the installation of SPSS. As you can see here, there are three important variables. The first variable is employee ID. Second variable is the variable gender. And the third variable is job category. Let me look at the sample size in this data. When you go to the last record, you can see the sample size is 474. This simply means that there are 474 records in this particular data set. When you look at the first employee is a male and he is working as a manager. The second employee is a male, he is working as a clerk. When you look at the third employee, she is a woman employee and she is working as a clerk. The first thing that I like to do to look at the level of male and female representation in this organization, what I can do is simply go to the frequencies option in SPSS. Let me go to the Analyze menu. The second option from the top is Descriptive Statistics. I repeat, in the Analyze menu, you have what is called as Descriptive Statistics. The very first option here is what is called as Frequencies. Let me click on this particular feature. This will open up a new dialog box, which is called as the Frequencies dialog box. You can see two boxes. There's a box to the left side. There's also a box to the right side. The box to the left side displays the names of the variables in the data set. Let me select the variable gender and push it into the variables list. I like to look at the percentage of men and the percentage of women who are working in this organization. If you click on the OK button at this stage, SPSS will generate a frequency distribution table. Though tables are very useful, many times it becomes difficult to interpret the results in a table. Hence, it's always advisable to use a chart along with a table for better interpretation of the data. At the right-hand side top corner, you have a button which is called as the Charts button. Let me go ahead and click on the Charts button. This will lead to a new dialog box. The name of this dialog box is Frequencies and Charts dialog box. Here, under the chart type section, there are four options. The first is none. Second is a bar chart. Third would be a pie chart. And lastly, you have a histogram. You can choose any of these charts. I will choose the third option from the top, which is called as the pie chart. As the name itself suggests, this will create a pie chart showing me the distribution of males versus the distribution of female employees in this organization. Right below, you have an interesting option, which is called as the chart values. SPSS is asking us, should I display frequencies or the count on each of the slices, or should I display the percentages? As a thumb rule, it is always better that you go by the percentage option. So let me choose the option percentage, click on continue, and then hit the OK button. Now, once you hit the OK button, this will lead to the output window. You can see here, this blank sheet is where SPSS prints the output. There are two tables. The first is the statistics table. It gives you two important things, what is called as N valid and N missing. The number of valid cases in this data set is 474, which simply means that there are 474 employees in this organization and there are 0 missing records that is observed. The second table is what I'm interested in. When you look at this particular table, this table is called as the frequency distribution table for gender. You can look at two categories. The first is female and the second one is male. Look at the column heading. You are getting frequency. In the second column, you have percentage, valid percentage, and finally you have cumulative percentage. What does this mean? This simply means that in this organization, you have 216 women employees. I repeat, there are 216 women employees. Secondly, when you look at 258, this means that there are 258 male employees. Instead of looking at the frequency, what I would advise is to look at the percentage number. In fact, when you look at the percentage column, it's the percentage column, my apologies, it's not the percentage number, it's the percentage column. When you look at the second column or the percentage column, you can see here 45.6. Now, how do we interpret this number 45.6? This simply means that in this organization, we have 45% of women employees working. Below this, you can see 54.4, which is roughly equal to 55%. What does this mean? This means that there are roughly 55% of males who are working in this organization. So the percentage of women employees is 45% and the percentage of male employees is 54%. Yes, there is a gap in the representation of males and females, but it is not a big gap. This is further confirmed when you look at this pie chart. It's always sensible to look at the legend section. When you look at the blue color slice represents the female category. The red color slice represents the male category. So with this, it is quite obvious that there is a slight bit of higher percentage of representation for the male category as compared to the women category. Further, SPSS does not show me the percentage of males and percentage of females. Now, for you to ask SPSS to display these numbers, you can simply double-click on this particular chart. Once you double-click on this particular chart, at the left-hand side, when you hover the mouse on this particular icon, it says Data Label Mode. Let me select this particular option and click on the red color slice and the blue color slice. You can see here 54.43% is the percent of male employees and roughly 46% would be the representation of women employees. Now, one thing that we can do is simply right click. You have the second option from the top, which is called as copy. In case you want to copy this into PowerPoint or Excel or Word, it is pretty simple. You can click on the copy option. In the search button, you can choose Excel. Let me open up a blank Excel sheet. Here, I'm going to press Control V. You can see here, this is the pie chart which we were looking at in SPSS. So this is how simple it is to export a pie chart from IBM SPSS to Microsoft Excel. Let me go back to SPSS. What we have looked at in the first section would be the representation of the male employees and compared it with the representation of the female employees. Though the males are slightly overrepresented, it is not an overwhelming domination, and hence we can still conclude that there is appreciable level of gender diversity in this organization. What would be really interesting would be to look at the distribution of gender with respect to job category. As you can clearly see here, gender is a categorical variable with two categories, namely males and females. Similarly, when you look at job category, this again is a categorical variable. There are three categories here. First is the managerial category. Then you have the clerical category. If I scroll down, you can also see a few custodials. So there are three categories for jobs, and there are two categories under gender. I'd like to look at the relationship between these two variables. Whenever you are looking at the relationship between two variables, you can always use the cross-tabulation method. How do you perform the cross-tabulation method in IBM SPSS? Let me click on the Analyze menu. The second option from the top is Descriptive Statistics. Here, the fourth option is cross-tabulation. Let me click on this particular button. This will open up a new dialog box, which is called as the cross-tabulation dialog box. You can see here, there is a box to the left-hand side, and to the right-hand side, under the row section, you have a box. Similarly, under the column section also, you have a box. Both of these options require that you specify a categorical variable. I will choose gender along the row, and then I'm going to choose job category along the column. The first categorical variable will be along the row. The second categorical variable will be along the column. At the left-hand side bottom corner, there's an option which is called as Display Clustered Bar Chart. I repeat, this is called as Display Clustered Bar Chart. In the right-hand side, there are different buttons. The third button from the top is what is called as the Cells button. Let me go ahead and select the Cells button. The moment I click on the Cells button, this will lead to a new dialog box, which is called as Crosstabs Cell Display dialog box. By default, SPSS will give you the observed count. Along with the observed count, I would want the row percentage. And hence I've selected row here. Now I'm going to click on Continue and then hit the OK button. Now, what SPSS does is it takes me to the output window. You're already familiar with this particular window. So let me go straight to the result of cross-tabulation. We have taken gender and we have taken employment category. Along the row, you have female versus male. And along the column, you have the three categories, namely clerical category, custodial category, and managerial category. Here, you have the row total, which is 216. Please observe the row heading, which is female. This simply means that in this organization, there are 216 female employees. When I look at this particular number, this is the marginal total. This is the row total for the male employees, which is 258. One very interesting thing here is to look at the percentage. This will give me a very interesting insight about the distribution of women employees in different job categories. 95.4, which means majority of the women in this organization are working as clerks. 96% is a really big number. Out of 100 employees, approximately 96 of these employees are working as clerks. 0.0% tells me that there is no woman who's working as a custodial. Further, you have 4.6%, which means approximately 5% of women are working as managers. So this is the distribution of gender, particularly the female gender, in the different job categories. Let's now look at the male category. What you're seeing here is 61%, which means that 61% of the male employees are working as clerks. Approximately 11% of the employees, male employees, are working as custodials. The balance 28% are working as managers. So this is what we can understand when we look at the distribution of gender with respect to employment category. A better way to make sense of the gender representation would be through the chart. You can see here, this is the chart that we had requested for. This is called as a clustered bar chart. I repeat, this is called as a clustered bar chart. In the x-axis, I have taken gender. There are two categories. One is female and the second one is male here. In the y-axis, SPSS is giving you the count of females and males with respect to different job category. In the female section, you can see only two bars. One is the blue colored bar and the second one is the green colored bar. Look at the description of the blue colored bar. It says clerical, and for the green colored bar, it says managerial. What does this mean? This simply means that amongst the female category, predominantly employees are working as clerks or as managers. In fact, a very, very tiny proportion of women are working as managers in this organization. Let's now focus on the male gender. Here you see three different sized bars. The first is the blue color bar, second, the red color bar, and lastly, you have the green color bar. The blue color bar is for clerks, which means in the male category, most of the employees are employed as clerks. The next bar that you see is red, which is relatively tiny, which means that a smaller proportion of people, especially males, are working as custodials. Lastly, you have the green color bar, which means that there are quite a few men who are working as managers. One very interesting observation that we can pull out from this data is while there is complete absence of the red color bar, which means that there is no woman who is employed as a custodial, you can see the red color bar appears for male category only, which means that all the custodials in this organization are working as, all the custodials who are working in this organization are men. So this is how you can do a simple gender diversity analysis as well as employee representation analysis in different job categories. If you want, you can also go ahead and perform statistical analysis. You can perform statistical hypothesis testing to check whether there is a relationship between employment category and gender. How do we do this? To perform a relationship analysis, you can reopen the dialog box. The very first option here is cross-tabulation. Let me click on this particular option. This will open up the cross-tabulation dialog box. At the right-hand side top corner, you have the exact button. Below this, you have the statistics button. Let me go ahead and select the statistics button. At the left-hand side corner, you have what is called as the chi-square statistic. I repeat, this is called as the chi-square statistic. The chi-square statistic is used to check if there is a relationship between two categorical variables. Let me click on continue and then click on OK. Now, the moment I click on OK, SPSS produces the output. This output is simply a cross-tabulation between gender and employment category. You're already familiar with these numbers, and therefore I'll skip this particular table. What is interesting is the result of the chi-square test. The result of the chi-square tests are reported in the chi-square test table. What this table displays are two very, very important statistics. First is what is called as Pearson chi-square. There was a famous statistician by the name of Carl Pearson. In honor of his name, we have coined this statistic as Pearson chi-square. There's another statistic which is called as likelihood ratio. For the purpose of this video, you can ignore the likelihood ratio and focus on the Pearson's chi-square. What is the Carl Pearson's chi-square value? In this analysis, the Carl Pearson's chi-square value is 79.27. The degrees of freedom is 2, and the last number is 0.000. Now, this number is called as the significance value. Some people also call this as the p-value or the probability value. How do we interpret this number? This number has to be compared with 0.05. You may ask me, what is 0.05? 0.05 is nothing but the 5% of level of significance. There is a simple thumb rule to interpret the p-value. That thumb rule is, if p is less than 0.05, you reject your null hypothesis. On the other hand, if the p-value is bigger than 0.05, you fail to reject the null hypothesis. How do you remember this? This can be remembered as a simple mantra. If p is low, null will go. And on the other hand, if p is high, null will fly. In my case, the p-value that I have obtained is 0.000. This is clearly less than 0.05. 0.000 is less than 0.05, and therefore we can reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is a significant relationship between employment category and gender, which means that gender influences employment category, which is what the cross-tabulation result told us. With this, I have come to the end of today's video. In today's video, we have studied two important things. The first thing that we have studied is to look at gender diversity in an organization. How do you look at gender diversity? A simple frequency distribution table would help us understand gender diversity. Secondly, you can also look at gender representation in different job categories through cross-tabulation. If you want to support your argument through statistical tests, you can go ahead and perform the chi-square test, which is used to study the relationship between two categorical variables. I request you to subscribe to my channel, also like and share my videos. Thank you very much for watching this particular video. Have a great day ahead.